What's up, church? We got some awesome things going on this week at Grace Point Family Church. Not as cool as us, but pretty cool.
Hey, speak for yourself.
It's coming up this Friday, September 30th, is our student hangout. This is a great opportunity for our kids to get together and hear a great message from Pastor.
Night.
That's right. It is date night coming. Oh, wait. It is student hangout, student get together, student party, whatever you want to call it. It is a great opportunity to hear a great message from our student team. And I know Pastor David puts a lot of work into this, and it is just amazing.
We also have Serve Day coming up on October 1st. This is an amazing day, an opportunity for our church to get out and be the hands and feet of Jesus in our community. We have opportunities to serve with street side showers, with Grace Place and the food pantry, and with Bring the Light Ministries in downtown Dallas. If it's on your heart to serve and to be a part, please join us, and you can sign up in the app.
You're just going to say, now let's join the service live.
Like that?
Something like that.
No, better.
Do it the way.
Let's join the service live.
Hey, amazing couples, we have marriage date night coming up October 8th at Grace Place. You definitely want to get signed up for this. It's an exciting night where you can make your marriage a priority. There's an amazing message, food, fellowship, and fun. So make sure you get signed up in our app.
3, and I know I looked down when the camera shifted down to looking at that number.
Bro, they don't need to know that.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of amazing opportunities for you to get plugged in. We've mentioned our app. How do you get the app? You text the letters GPFCAPP to the number 469-551-5353. So make sure you get the app so you can stay up to date with all our exciting events. And church, thank you so much for your generosity in giving. It's through your generosity it enables our church to do so much through our community here locally and worldwide. There's easy ways to give. You can give through our website, gracepointfamilychurch.com. You can give through our app, and you can give here in the back of the church after service. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Hey, Grace Point Family Church, we are so excited that you're with us today. Whether you're at home and watching online, or if you're right here in the room and I can point at you because you're over there and over there. And if I'm calling you by name, I'm so excited wherever you're watching, wherever you're participating from. We just want to say thank you for being with us today.
Yes, and we would love to connect with you. To connect with us, please text the word welcome to 469-551-5353, and we're going to send you an email with 2 great gifts in it. Thanks for joining us today.
Let's join the service live right about now.
Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And as Pastor said, it's that perfect, divine love that our Father gives to us. He's constantly seeking after us. Amen. We couldn't earn it, and we don't deserve it, but yet He still does it. We thank you this morning, God. We thank you.
I'm back. This is part of the service. We're going to take a moment, greet your neighbors. I encourage you, reach out to somebody that you have not met yet and tell them how great they look this morning. All right.
Good morning. Am I live? Oh, there you are.
You are
I'm live now.
live. Yes. Woo. Hello.
Well,
Happy Sunday, you all. You guys be seated. If you're wondering why people are standing, it's because the Word of God is going to go forth.
yes.
We are excited about this message today. We are right in the middle of our Firm Foundation series.
Okay, I'm really excited about this message today.
Because you like it when I'm up here with you.
Yes,
But
okay.
I like
So-
sitting on the front row right there.
Hope's comfortable spot is right there. And so when she came to me on Tuesday, we always talk during the week about, okay, what's God got on your heart? What have you been praying about? Is there anything that God is showing you as we prepare for the next weekend's message? And this week, Hope was just like, okay, God showed me this, and I'm reading this book, and it really explains how. And so she gets really passionate. When I see her that passionate, I was like, okay, great, guess what? You're gonna speak this weekend. She goes, no, I'm not. I said, yes, you are. She goes, no, I'm not. So she agreed that she would do it with me, but not on her own. So my sweet bride is with me today. It's going to be so good. One of my very favorite things to do. One of my very favorite things to do is get a chance to speak with Hope. And so I'm super excited this morning.
He is. He's fired up.
Woo!
So
Let's go.
you can always tell, like first service, he's a lot calmer and quieter, and you get to second service, and he like wakes up. So
Listen, if you want quiet, first service is for you. This is not that. So heads up.
yes. So our Firm Foundation series, or Build Your House series, is all about firm foundations and building on Jesus, building on the firm foundation. Our core verse is Matthew 7:24 and 25. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds their house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the flood waters rise and the winds beat against the house, it will not collapse because it is built on bedrock.
Yeah.
So the first week of this series, we learned about how Jesus is our firm foundation. And it's by his grace alone that we are saved. It's not through our own works or our own strength. Jesus is our firm foundation. And then the second week, we learned how to be anchored to the foundation. Because to be hurricane-proof, it's all about how you're anchored to the foundation. And we're anchored by keeping our eyes on Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
I want to just point out that, by the way, Matthew 7:24 and 25 is how Jesus ends the sermon. Like, this is the most famous message ever preached, ever in the history of time. This is the first big address that Jesus gave to his followers. This is the Sermon on the Mount, and this is how he chose to end it. And it's so powerful if we just put it in light of, okay, wait a minute, this is not just something he said once upon. No, this is the way he closed out. This is so significant that he says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise like a person who builds on solid rock. But by the way, there's also the person who doesn't. And the person who doesn't is like somebody who's building on shifting sand. They're foolish like somebody who builds on shifting sand. And when the winds come and the storms blow, and they will, John 16:33, 15:33, 16:30. It's John 16:33. Oh yeah, totally. In this world you will have troubles, but fear not, for I've overcome the world. And this whole thing about staying anchored, it's all about when a house in a tropical storm, hurricane, tornado gets blown off and knocked down, what happens is the foundation is still in place. Just the house has been removed from the foundation. So when something is hurricane rated, it means that they've gone extra measures to secure the frame of that house to the foundation. And our foundation is, just like we said earlier, in Jesus Christ alone, not by works, lest any man should boast. We're saved by grace through faith, not by works, lest any man should boast. Therefore, our entire firm foundation is the love and the goodness of Jesus, the love and the goodness of God expressed to us in the sacrifice of Jesus, his son.
Yes.
So
today we are talking about the vision, the blueprints for building your life. And when Leif and I had been married only a couple of years, we bought a couple of acres outside of Farmersville, and it was pretty. It had a creek through the middle and all these big oak trees. And there was a model house that I liked, but that model house was like 4,500 square feet, and we wanted to build half of that. So I drew on a piece of paper what I wanted the house to look like. And we talked to a builder there in Farmersville, and he said, yeah, I can totally build that. He went and looked at the model with us because it had a crazy angled living room, and the garage was at an angle. There were all these angles in the house, and it was really wide open and pretty. And so he's like, I can build that to you. Go talk to the bank and get a construction loan. So we go talk to the bank, and, do we need blueprints? And they said, who's your builder? Well, Jimmy's our builder. Jimmy can build it. Don't worry about it. You don't need blueprints, that drawing on a piece of paper. It'll be just fine. So we get a call a few months.
We got financed for a loan on a building
on a piece of paper that I drew an outline of a house on. So Jimmy's building this house for us, and we get a call. The foundation's been poured. He's like, hey, we're doing the chalk lines today, and I want you to come out and see where the walls are and make sure it's the way you want it. So we go out, and an angle was just the tiniest bit off, and so it was going to be a huge master suite.
It wasn't a master bedroom. It was a master suite at this point. It was gargantuan.
Yeah.
It was mammoth. It was
and
huge.
The garage was huge.
Huge.
Yes. And the living room and everything was just like we thought it would be. But the other bedrooms and bathroom were a lot smaller.
The kids' rooms were tiny. So anyway, master bedroom, huge garage, little bitty kids' rooms.
So are blueprints important? Is the vision important? Absolutely. It's critical. And what's even more important is that you follow it exactly.
Yeah.
Like you don't stray. You don't get off just even 1 or 2 degrees on an angle because it can throw everything else off. And so we're talking about that vision that you have for your life. And today we're going to talk about King Saul. And I'm sure he had a vision for what his life would look like. But God changed it. Yeah. And as long as Saul followed God every step of the way, it was amazing. It was miraculous. It was more than he could have ever dreamed or expected. So the
blueprint. So we spent the first 2 weeks talking about foundation. Today we're talking about the plans, the blueprints.
Yes, and about how to follow those exactly. Yes. So this week I read a book by Matt Keller, and it made me think of Saul's early days in a whole new way. And I want to share some of that with you. We're going to start right at the beginning of Saul's life, 1 Samuel 9, verse 1. There was a wealthy influential man named Kish from the tribe of Benjamin. His son Saul.
Oh, wait. You're going to skip that again? Okay.
I
She skipped this in the first verse. Let me help you out.
because we're short on time.
Okay,
They
but the
don't
back
read.
end of he was the son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Bechorath, son of Aphiah, of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, now, keep going.
Okay, we ran long for service. So
Harsh.
his son Saul was the most handsome man in all Israel, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the land. So, what are
What?
you doing back there?
You're doing great, babe. Keep going.
Oh my gosh, so many stories I could tell, but I'm going to stay on track. So here's Saul. His dad is wealthy, his dad is influential, and not only that, he is the most handsome and tallest man in the entire country.
Claudia Sue.
They're saying you're not tall.
Like we just got
Wait.
started and Claudia Sue's already at it. Claudia Sue. shh.
Okay, focus.
Focus.
Okay, so I'm sure Saul had a plan, a vision for how he thought his life was going to go. I'm going to be wealthy like my dad. I'm going to be influential like my dad. And I'm going to have a gorgeous wife. And life is going to be good. And life's going to be pretty easy, right? I'm sure he had this picture in his mind. And he knew who he was. He knew he was Kish's son. But did he know who God said he was? And do you know who God says you are? Genesis 1:27 says, you are created in the image of God. Psalm 139:14 says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes. 2 Corinthians 6:18 says, you are a son or a daughter of God. If you know who you are, if you know who God says you are, when God asks you to do crazy things or hard things or difficult things or things that you think might, be kind of beneath you, it's so much easier to obey because you know he has a plan for your life. And if he asked you to do it, you're going to do it because God loves you and he's trying to get you where you need to be. Mm-hmm. So Saul's dad is going to ask him to do something that's probably kind of beneath him. So verse 3, one day Kish's donkeys strayed away, and he told Saul, take a servant with you and go look for the donkeys. Now, here's Saul. He's the important man's son, and he's handsome. He didn't complain. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say, oh, Dad, I'm too tired to go look for donkeys. Send a servant. Dad, I'm too busy to look for donkeys. Go send a servant. Dad, I'm hungry. I'm just not feeling it. Looking for donkeys isn't on my list of things that I should be doing. Saul didn't make any excuses. Look at his response. So Saul took one of the servants and traveled through the hill country of Ephraim to the land of Shalisha, the Shalem area, and the entire land of Benjamin. But they couldn't find the donkeys anywhere. I want you to notice he went with a servant. He didn't go alone. From the very beginning of time, God said, it is not good for man to be alone. God never intended for you to do life alone. You are supposed to be doing life with someone, and you're going to see how important that is as we go through this story. Now, he went to a lot of different places. I'm sure when he started looking for the donkeys, or when, good old dad said, hey, Saul, go find the donkeys. It's kind of like if my dog, Trooper, whom I love dearly, gets out. You did so good.
I didn't say a word.
Quiet.
I didn't say a word. Like, love dearly doesn't cut it. Like, okay, adores this dog.
Okay, so I adore this dog. if he gets out and I go look for him, I think he's going to be somewhere close to the house, right? Like, I'm going to find him pretty quickly, just walk around. I'll find him. I'm sure Saul and the servant thought, okay, these donkeys can't be that far. We're just going to go look for the donkeys. We'll be back pretty soon. So they weren't, though. The Bible lists all these places that they went. Look at that list of places. The hill country of Ephraim, the land of Shalisha, the area of Shalem, and the land of Benjamin. And that's not even where they found him. They went to all these places. And I know it's just real quick in a Bible, the list of these places. But I want you to think about nothing is in the Bible by accident. So we're going to take a look at each of these places and what they meant in Saul's life. And I don't want you to think this was a quick journey. 2 of these places don't even exist today, but historians say that this journey was probably 32 miles on foot in really rough, hilly, mountainous terrain. So they were gone for days looking for these donkeys. Did you want to add anything to that? You have been so quiet for so long. Okay, so have you ever been on a mission, on a path, on a journey, and it took you way longer than you thought it would take? Mm-hmm. Or it took you different directions and you ended up in places you never expected to be?
Right.
I'm sure at this point Saul is thinking, what in the world am I doing here?
I'll just say this. Okay, I'm going to say this very quickly. You might be here this morning and you're thinking, man, I've taken some unexpected turns. I didn't plan on this or that or the other thing in my life. I had, like Saul, my plan. I'm a good-looking guy. Well, y'all need to calm down. So anyway, Saul's plan did not include this long journey to go look for donkeys. He went to 4 places, no donkeys. He went to the first place, no donkeys. The second place, no donkeys. And maybe this morning you're thinking, you know what? I've been through some stuff. The plan did not go as I expected, and I got knocked a little bit off course by this one thing. And okay, then I was going to be okay, but then there was another thing, and then there was another thing, and another thing. And how did I get here? What am I doing here? Looking for donkeys. Where are the donkeys at? I don't see any donkeys. And so right now you may feel in this moment of time like you've gotten so far off track and you don't see how to get back to where you planned to be in the first place. But listen, God is so faithful and he is so true. And when we look back in our lives, we see this crazy mixed mash pattern. Like you see your past and what's gotten you to this moment in time. And as you look back, you're thinking, well, there was a hard left turn here and there was a hard right turn there. And then I went over here and that was not what I thought it was. I took this job and they didn't tell me the truth about what this job is going to entail. So then I had a job that I lost because, I got fired or whatever else. You may have been all kinds of crazy places, and in your mind, your path looks like a hard left and a hard right and a hard left and a hard right. But from heaven's perspective, it's a straight line.
Yeah.
You see it as detours. God sees it as redirecting because Romans 8:28 is still true. All things work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And that's you.
Yeah.
And that's you. So God's bringing you to where he needs you to be for what he wants you to do, for what he wants to do in your life next.
Yeah. There's always a purpose in the process. Don't give
Okay,
up.
say that again.
There's always a purpose in the process. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Keep going. Keep obeying. Keep taking the next step because God has an amazing plan for your life. And his blueprint, his vision, his plan is way better than you could ever dream or expect. And sometimes things do take longer than you expect, like that house that Jimmy built us. He told us, usually I'm done with the house in 3 months. If it's really rainy, it might take 4 months. And So we thought, okay,
You're not going to get an apartment for 3 or 4 months. Let's just move in with the in-laws.
yes. So we move in with my mom and dad and little baby Callie, who's not an easy baby. She's super colicky and fussy. And we had torrential, like most rain they've ever seen in the Dallas area for months and months. And that house took
9
months.
months.
I'm sure they were ready for us to move out with baby Callie.
We were not as excited for us to be finished as they were.
Yes. So we're going to look at all these places that Saul went. So picking up, so Saul took one of the servants and traveled through the hill country of Ephraim. In those days, Ephraim was known as the land of double fruitfulness. I know Leif told the story of Jacob last week. Well, Jacob had his son Joseph, like Joseph with the coat of many colors, Joseph. And Joseph had 2 sons. And when Jacob blessed the sons, he gave Ephraim, the younger son, the older son's blessing, a double blessing. So Ephraim was always known as the land of double fruitfulness. So Saul's first place is Ephraim, the land of double fruitfulness. Sounds awesome, right?
I'm not just going to find my donkeys. I'm going to find some bonus donkeys.
Yes. But how do you make a plant more fruitful?
You prune it.
No one likes pruning. Pruning's not fun. It's not cool. But sometimes God has to cut things out of your life that don't belong there so that you can be fruitful. And sometimes it's attitude things.
Mm-hmm.
It might be things like pride or shame, or sometimes it's people that you don't want to cut out. There's a verse in Hebrews 12:6 that says, "For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child." How many of you parents out there just love disciplining your kids? No one? How many of you love to bless your kids? That's so much fun, right? No one loves disciplining their kids. We discipline them because we love them. Mm-hmm. We discipline them because we want them to be everything they're called to be. We want them to have that great, amazing future. Mm-hmm. We want the dream for them. Well, God's the same way. Today, if he disciplines you, if he directs you, if he corrects you, it's because he wants what's best for you.
Okay, so if you find yourself this morning in a place where you feel like you're being pruned, it might seem like a dry season to you. It might seem like a season where, why is this happening and why is it a struggle right now? If you're in a place of pruning, let me say this: stop resisting it. When you lay it out as an offering before God, when you lay your life out as an offering before God, and he says, okay, I need to take this one thing. Like you think you have a coping mechanism of sarcasm, but really your sarcasm is biting and hurting other people. I've got to remove that. When you think you have a coping mechanism, I've got friendship, I have friends, and we all like to complain and gossip and just rat and then go negative, and we're just trying to top each other's negativity, and God says, I need to remove that relationship from your life because that is not going to help you. When you discipline your kids, it's because you know it's what they need. You know it's what's best for them, and God is the same way. When he removes things from your life, we want to no, I like that one. Don't take that from me, God. If your life is laid out like an offering before him, he can take the parts out he needs to take out. He can add the things you didn't even know you need yet, but God's going to give you some gifts in your life. But pruning, it might not be fun. It gets a lot easier when we stop resisting it and say, God, do what you need to do in my life.
Yeah. So, as we're on these crazy detour journeys that we don't understand why, sometimes it's so God can prune us, so he can prepare us to be more fruitful than we've ever been before. The next place Saul goes is the land of Shalisha. And Shalisha? Shalisha. So he goes to Shalisha, also known as Bel Shalisha, and it's only mentioned one other place in the Bible, and this is when Elisha is living through this incredible severe famine and drought. They didn't have rain for 3.5 years. And God sends a man from Shalisha with 20 loaves of bread for the people of God. That's God's provision. Sometimes as you're on this journey, it's hard. You feel like you're in a desert. You feel like you're in a drought, and you don't know where provision's going to come from. But God is your provider.
Yes.
If you'll take the steps he's telling you to take, he's going to be your provider. He's going to provide for you.
So he goes to the land of Shalisha, the land of provision, and there was no donkey provided. Like, where's my donkey at? All right, provide me a new donkey. But that's not what he found.
He's not done yet. So the next place he's going to go is the Shalem area. And this area is known as the land of foxes. There's another place in the Bible where foxes are mentioned. It's Song of Songs 2:15. Catch all the little foxes, those little foxes, before they ruin the vineyard of love, for the grapevines are blossoming. Those little foxes, they can totally derail you. They can kill a vision. They can kill a future. Right now, if you go up to my front door, on my front patio right there, I have some pots, and in those pots I have potato vine. And my potato vine is just completely destroyed by a little bug that's so tiny I can't even see it. Now, Noelle can probably see it, but my eyes are betraying me. They think they're older than I am, and I can't see those little bugs. It's the little things that can destroy. So Paul goes to this land of foxes. Saul, thank you. Saul goes to this land of foxes. And he's supposed to take care of the foxes. What are foxes in our life? It might be little things, like maybe you compare yourself to other people and you think, oh, you know what? At least I'm doing better than them. Or I wish I was doing that well. That's pride. Saul did not deal with the pride in his life, and it led to his downfall. And we're going to see that here towards the end of the message. But you have to deal with the little foxes. You have to deal with pride. You have to deal with shame. You have to deal with sin in your life. Sin could be small things like the pride. It could be things like addiction to food, or addiction to drugs or alcohol, or addiction to social media. It can be little things. Little things destroy the vine.
Yeah. Okay,
So-
you can say that part about social media again. So anyway.
Yes. So Saul and David were different in this way. King David prayed in Psalms 139:23, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. If there be any wicked way in me, let me know. Let me deal with it." David constantly prayed before God, show me if there's anything I need to deal with. Are there any little foxes I need to take care of? So Saul goes through the entire land of Benjamin, and this is where he grew up. So I'm sure as he's traveling along, he's like, hey, that's where we raced the donkeys, and ooh, that's where so-and-so was mean to me when I was little. And that's where I was disappointed because I lost the race, but then I finally grew and I'm really tall and I win all the races now. So he's going through his past. Sometimes you have to go through your past and deal with things that you have not dealt with. Deal with unforgiveness, deal with hurts, so that you can be all that God has called you to be.
Yeah.
If you have some things in your past that you need to deal with, if you'll go on Facebook, Wednesday night on our Facebook Live, we talked about how to be set free from all those things in your past, so
Yeah.
you can catch that there. So again, whether it's the past or current sin or shame, be like David and pray, God, show me what I need to deal with. Let me take care of the things that need to be taken care of. So they've traveled to these 4 locations, and they're finally at one final stop. And it's been long, and it's tiring, and they're out of food. And so they're finally in this land of Zuph. And wouldn't you know, God took them on this crazy journey, this crazy path, full of detours, full of places they never wanted to go, never expected to go. And they end up in the land that Samuel's from. It's his homeland. And he's there, and Samuel is the man of God, the prophet, the leader of Israel at the time. Look at God's crazy journey. And they end up in this place, but they almost turn around. Look at verse 5. Finally, they enter the region of Zeph, and Saul said to his servant, "Let's go home. By now, my father will be more worried about us than about the donkeys." That little glimpse of pride. I'm more important than donkeys. But remember, Saul's not alone. He's not by himself. But the servant said, "I've just thought of something. There is a man of God who lives here in this town. He is held in high honor by all the people because everything he says comes true. Let's go find him. Perhaps he can tell us which way to go." Y'all need a friend in a fight. You need someone who's going to help you keep going and not stop short of what God has for you.
Yeah.
A friend who encourages you. And when you make excuses like Saul's about to do, you can come up with the right answer. So Saul says, "But we don't have anything to offer him. Even our food is gone, and we don't have a thing to give him." But Saul's servant had an answer. He said, "I held something back. I have a silver coin. Let's go find him." So verse 14, so they entered the town, and as they passed through the gates, Samuel was coming out toward them to go up to the place of worship. Now the Lord had told Samuel the previous day, "About this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him to be the leader of my people, Israel. He will rescue them from the Philistines, for I have looked down on my people with mercy, and I've heard their cry." When Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said, "That's the man I told you about. He will rule my people." All those crazy detours, that crazy journey, 32 miles on foot, in sandals. They didn't have cool hiking boots back then. Through the mountains with the thorns and brush and bushes and looking for donkeys. They're hungry, they're tired. But this is God's moment, the divine setup.
So Saul was 30 years old when he became king.
Yeah.
And he reigned for 42 years. The beginning of the story is Saul is given direction by his father, and he perseveres. When he goes to the place of pruning, he still perseveres. When he goes to the place of provision, but there's no provision, he still perseveres. When he goes to the place of your past, he perseveres. And because he's persevered, there's this blessing that comes on his life. He's anointed to be the next king of Israel. So he's been taken on detour after detour after detour after detour, and he ends up in this place called Zuph, which is the hometown of Elkanah, which is Samuel's father. And so this is Samuel's hometown, and Samuel happens to be home. And because he's been faithful, God has prepared Samuel's heart. About this time tomorrow, I'm going to send you this young man. And when you see him, anoint him to be the next king of Israel. See, Saul is one of those characters in the Bible that's easy for us to make a cartoon character out of, because we know what's coming, right? He's going to mess up. He's going to blow it. He's going to persecute David, King David, the next anointed king. He's going to make it rough. He's going to go absolutely crazy. And so we look at Saul and we want to make him like a cartoon character, like a bad guy in a villain, like one of those cartoons where the Bo Snerdley, y'all remember Bo Snerdley?
No.
Okay, because y'all are way too young. Bo Snerdley was the bad guy in the early Saturday morning cartoons that would twist his little mustache and, that guy. So his name was Bo Snerdley. Did y'all not know that?
Claudia's with you. The rest of us don't
Claudia
know.
Sue, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is my chance to get even. Claudia Sue is old enough to catch that reference. So anyway, I didn't say that. What do you think? I don't know what y'all are talking about. Okay, so Saul is anointed to be king by God, and Saul takes this ragtag bunch of farmers and herdsmen and refugees and forges them into a nation. He takes these men that don't have any weapons and makes an army out of them. Watch this. And actually, it's in 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 47. Now, when Saul had secured his grasp on Israel's throne, he fought against his enemies in every direction, against Moab, Ammon, Edom, the kings of Zobah, and the Philistines. And wherever he turned, he was victorious. Wow. He performed great deeds and conquered the Amalekites, saving Israel from all those who had plundered them. But then, things are about to take a turn. Again, it's not a hard right. It's not 90 degrees. It's 1 degree. 1 degree. Watch this. 1 Samuel chapter 13, verses 5 through 14. And yes, it's 9 verses. Stay with me. Saul did not deal with the little fox of pride. Remember last week we talked about that we had to have a firm foundation. We need to be anchored to our foundation. And what does the world around us, what does culture around us try to get us to do? Take our eyes off of Jesus and put our eyes on us, our own ambitions, our own egos, our own hurts and hang-ups. Well, Saul gets just a little bit off because he starts worrying about his own ambitions and his own ego. Watch this. Verse 5, the Philistines mustered a mighty army of 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and as many warriors as the grains of sand on the seashore. Just some math for you, that's a lot. Just in case you're wondering, that's a lot. Okay. They camped at Michmash, east of Bethaven. The men of Israel saw the tight spot they were in, and because they were hard-pressed by the enemy, they tried to hide in caves, thickets, rocks, holes, and cisterns. Some of them crossed the Jordan River and escaped into the land of Gad and Gilead. He's got men in this brand new army he just forged, and they begin to run away. Meanwhile, Saul stayed at Gilgal, and his men were trembling with fear. Saul waited there 7 days for Samuel, listen to this, as Samuel had instructed him earlier. So he's not there by chance. He was instructed by the voice of God through Samuel, like, you stay here, I'm coming. You stay here, I'm coming. As Samuel had instructed, but Samuel still didn't come. Saul realized that his troops were rapidly slipping away. If God is for you, does it matter that your troops are starting to slip away? If God is for you, you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be intimidated. God is for him, but he starts to look at the army who's vastly outnumbered as if somehow that was going to be the salvation. That was going to be the provision. He sees his army rapidly slipping away, so he demands, bring me the burnt offering and the peace offerings, and Saul sacrificed the burnt offering himself. Just as Saul was finishing the burnt offering, Samuel arrived. Awkward. Saul went out to meet and welcome him, but Samuel said, what is this that you've done? Saul replied, listen to this. Okay, I've got a daughter in med school. I've got a son who's an engineer. I've got my youngest who is going into high school next year. And you would think, not med school, not engineer, you'd think I raised a family of lawyers because they're really good at what Saul does next.
Everyone's looking at Caleb.
Okay. Nobody look at Caleb. He's right there, but nobody look at him right now. Like, look away. Don't look at him right now because you'd make him uncomfortable. So anyway, Saul replied, I saw my men scattering from me, and you didn't arrive when you said you would. So Samuel, it's your fault. Well, you didn't arrive when you said you would. And the Philistines are at Michmash and ready for battle. So I said, the Philistines are ready to march against us at Gilgal, and I haven't even asked for the Lord's help. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering myself before you came. Hold on. Okay, I know what you told me to do. These are the words my kids would use, especially when they were younger. Now it's not so much, but when they were younger, actually, like, listen, take out the trash. Take out the trash, take out the trash, take out the trash. I want the backyard mode. Listen, clean your room. Like, do these things. And days would go by. Son, daughter, did you do what I asked you to do? Well, actually, technically, where did my kids learn the word technically and how to use that against their dad in this moment? Technically, Dad, actually, I did. I just did it my way because I think I know a little bit better than you, Dad. Now, my kids are amazing. I'm not trying to pick on my kids. And if you've got kids, you've had these same conversations. Am I wrong? Okay, so it's not just you, it's everybody. Every kid at some point pulls the whole, listen, actually, technically, I did what you said, but I just did it my way. Well, is that what I asked you to do? No, I actually do it my way, the way I said, because I actually know some things, kid. Okay. I saw my men scattering from me, and you didn't arrive when you said you would, and the Philistines are at Michmash and ready for battle, so I said, the Philistines are ready to march against us at Gilgal, and I haven't even asked for the Lord's help yet, so I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering myself before you came. Listen, what I did was holy and righteous, so back in your face. Listen, I did it my own way, and my way was good too. Because after all, I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering myself before you came. So Saul became impatient in the waiting and fearful, just like the men he was called to lead. If you're called to leadership, and you are, you have to at least begin with leading yourself. If you're called to leadership, and you are, when anxiety and fear tries to come upon you, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, with thanksgiving and prayer, make a request known to God. And then he gives you what? Peace. To guard your heart and mind. Okay. Saul begins to operate from a place of insecurity, and then he begins to try to help God out. Remember last week when we talked about Jacob, and Jacob, because he was born with a blessing. He was born with a blessing. The Spirit of God said the older is going to serve the younger, and the younger is going to be the strong one, the leader, the ruler. The young one is going to be, and listen, this is just like when his father, Isaac blessed, right? There's Manasseh and Ephraim, and I'm going to switch my hands and put my hand on the other one and pronounce the blessing on the younger one. In the same way, Jacob ends up blessed by God, right? Did I get that wrong? It wasn't Isaac, it was Jacob who became Israel. I'm sorry. Okay, so he crosses hands and he pronounces the blessing on the younger one, just like he had for his father. Now listen to this. This is Jacob, having been born with the blessing, begins to decide how he's going to help God out. I don't trust that God's going to do what he said he was going to do, so I'm just going to help him out a little bit. This is ambition. We talked last week about when the enemy tries to get you focused on anything but Jesus, he puts your own eyes on your own ambitions. And listen, you can't necessarily count on God to do what he says he's going to do. You better help him out a little bit. So he begins to help God out a little bit and offer the offering without doing what he was told to do, which was wait for Samuel. So Samuel walks up, and I want you to think about this. What if Saul had waited 5 more minutes? 5 more minutes. Verse 13, how foolish, Samuel exclaimed. You have not kept the command of your Lord, the Lord your God gave you. Had you kept it, the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom must end, for the Lord has sought a man after his own heart. The Lord has already appointed him to be the leader of his people because you have not kept the Lord's commandment. Now, 2 things I want to point out here. Number 1, if you're thinking to yourself, am I a Saul? No, you're not. No, you're not. Because, number 1, Jesus had not come and paid the ultimate price. And here's the deal. If you turn your hearts toward heaven, his mercies are new every morning. He will never give up on you. Yeah. You are not Saul, but we can learn from Saul, right? Okay, so you are not Saul. I don't want anybody to walk out here starting to feel some condemnation or anything on you. That is not true. But look what else happens. He says, the Lord has already appointed the next king. Now, what's interesting here is David wasn't anointed king until the next chapter. At this moment in time, Samuel has never met David because remember, he went to the house of Jesse and said, it's going to be one of your sons, bring me your sons. And he looks at the sons and said, it's none of these. Are you sure this is all your sons? He didn't say, where's David at? I know he's here. I know that boy. I've known him since he was this high. No, he had no idea about David. So are you sure this is all your sons? Okay, then go bring that one and bring him here. So at this moment in time, in chapter 15, Samuel did not know about David. But Samuel was hearing from the heart of God and says, and the heart of God said, I've seen this young man in the field, watching over his father's sheep, guarding them and protecting them selflessly. And while he's been there, he's been worshiping me and writing psalms and honing his craft. And Samuel, you might not know who he is yet, but I've already identified who the blessing is going to come on, and I've already begun to prepare. And I'm about to send you to go on to the next king. But in this moment, Samuel is speaking prophetically. The blessing, the anointing is going to come off of Saul. Okay. In 1 Samuel chapter 15, we're going to go a little deeper. This is a lot, but I'm going to read it line by line. We're going to kind of break it down a little bit. This is the next Saul blunder. One day, Samuel said to Saul, it was the Lord who told me to anoint you as the king of his people, Israel. It was the Lord who told me to anoint you to be the king of his people, Israel. Your authority, Saul, comes from God. You're anointed by God, through me, but by God, to be the king of his people, Israel. Now listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord of heaven's armies has declared. I have decided to settle accounts with the nation of Amalek for opposing Israel when they came up from Egypt. Now go and completely destroy the entire Amalekite nation. Sounds harsh, but why? Because when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, when they'd been enslaved and in bondage and oppressed, and God begins to deliver them out, this was their weakest point in time, and Amalek warred against them. And God says, you know what? That doesn't work with me. These are my people. And so that nation has to be dealt with once and for all. Verse 7, then Saul slaughtered the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, east of Egypt. He captured Agag, the Amalekite king. He did not kill Agag, the Amalekite king. He captured Agag, the Amalekite king, but completely destroyed everyone else. Saul and his men spared Agag's life and kept the best of the sheep and the goats and the cattle and the fat calves and the lambs, everything, in fact, that appealed to them. They destroyed only what was worthless or of poor quality. Why did Saul not kill King Agag? Because the custom of that day was the king was establishing his creds. The king was establishing, I'm the man. He did that, but because when you took another king, when you wiped out their nation, you took their army, you defeated their army, you would capture the king, and you would do what? This is going to be graphic, sorry. They would take the king's thumbs, and they would take the king's big toes off. And so now he has to be assisted everywhere he wants to walk, and he cannot feed himself and handle himself, and he was kept there in the king's court as an example. If you cross me, you end up like that. You basically the king's jester in his court, and this is how a king heaps honor on himself. So this is why Saul keeps King Agag alive, but that's not what he was told to do, right? Okay, let's keep going. Then Saul slaughtered the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, east of Egypt.
Yeah.
And he kept King Agag. I didn't scroll up, sorry. So they destroyed everything except for the things they liked. Kill everybody and wipe out everything. Kept Agag and kept all the best stuff. Listen to me. Partial obedience is not obedience, it's disobedience.
Yeah.
Partial obedience is disobedience. Huge, 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 huge. Last week we talked about forgive as you've been forgiven. Forgive as you've been forgiven. Because I forgave you, I want you to forgive freely. See, we've been given grace by the truckload, but we want to measure it out and by the spoonful. Yeah. Right? We want to decide, I'll forgive most of it. But partial obedience is disobedience. Partial obedience is still disobedience. We have to walk in the full obedience. If we've been called to forgive, we've been called to forgive. If we've been called to love, we've been called to love. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient. You love, you forgive, because that's what you've been called to do.
Yeah.
The Lord said to Samuel, I am sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and he's refused to obey my commands. Samuel was so deeply moved that when he heard this, he cried out to the Lord all night. Early the next morning, Samuel went to go find Saul, and someone told him Saul went to the town of Carmel to set up a monument to himself. Saul went to the town of Carmel to set up a monument to himself. Does that sound like a good idea to anybody in this room? Just checking. Then he went on to Gilgal. So God, through Samuel, sends Saul on a mission. God blesses him. The mission is successful. And Saul says, you know what I ought to do? I ought to build up a monument to how awesome I am. Okay, hold on to this. This is going to get interesting. Remember, Saul went to the town of Carmel to set up a monument for himself, because we're going to come back here in just a second. Verse 13, when Samuel finally found him, Saul greeted him cheerfully. Cheerfully. Woohoo! I did it. You gave me a mission. I did it. Woo! Job well done. Go me. May the Lord bless you, he said. I have carried out the Lord's command. But partial obedience is what?
Disobedience.
Disobedience. Then what is all the bleating of sheep and the goats and the lowing of cattle I hear? Samuel demanded. It's true that the army, not me, the army, it wasn't me, the army spared the best of the sheep and goats and cattle, Saul admitted, but they're going to sacrifice them to the Lord your God. We've destroyed everything else. That's nice, but that's not what you were told to do. Then Samuel said to Saul, listen, when your kids sometimes have been not quite obedient, like they did, actually, technically, I did kind of what you told me to do, but I knew a better way. And at some point when they begin to justify themselves and this is why it's okay. And listen, my mom's right there. She can tell you I did this too. So it's not just my kids. I did this too. My mom will tell you. She'll be happy to tell you. Ask for the stories, she'll give them to you. At some point, have you ever looked at your kids and just stop? So I want you to hear this next part differently. But they're going to go sacrifice to the Lord your God. We've destroyed everything else. And Samuel just, stop. Stop. Listen to what the Lord told me last night. What did he tell you? Saul asked. And Samuel told him, although you may think little of yourself, are you not the leader of the tribes of Israel? The Lord has anointed you the king of Israel. Although you may think little of yourself. Did this man not just build a monument to himself in Carmel? I did the mission. I did the thing. I got King Agag. I'm about to take his thumbs and his big toes. He's going to sit in my court and be the example to everybody else. You don't mess with King Saul. It seems like Saul is pretty pleased with himself. But remember that Samuel's speaking by the Spirit of the Most High God. Although you may think little of yourself. Last week we talked about the trap of ego. When you try to pretend you're something you're not, what is King Saul doing? He's making sure his men know, I'm a strong king, don't mess with me. I've got King Agag on my court, crippled. At my whim, I'm a strong king. Samuel says, the Lord your God is not fooled. And though you may think little of yourself, have I not made you king of Israel? We get it mixed up sometimes because we say, I don't struggle with pride. If anything, I'm just a lowly, lowly worm. It's the same coin. It's just the other side of that coin. See, pride and insecurity are the same thing because it's still all about you.
Yeah. So good. Good.
If it's not about God and it's about you, we're just dealing with the other side of pride. Insecurity is just the other side of the same coin. The Spirit of God said, I'm not fooled. Your confidence should have been in me. Your confidence was never meant to be in you. You don't have to set up monuments in your own honor. You don't have to keep trophies of your victories because your confidence was always supposed to be in me and not you. You missed it. Verse 18, and the Lord sent you on a mission and told you, go and completely and destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, until they're all dead. Why haven't you obeyed the Lord? Why did you rush for the plunder and do what was evil in the Lord's sight? Again, Saul begins to try to defend his actions, but God was not fooled. Picking up in verse 22, but Samuel replied, what is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than the offering of the fat of rams. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft. And stubbornness is as bad as worshiping idols. Why? Because when I decide that my way is better than God's way, I've made myself my own God. It's worshiping idols. So because you've rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. Saul let his own ambitions and insecurities put him on a different track. And remember, it didn't start off like a major hard left turn. God said, go fight the Amalekites. I'm not gonna, thanks. He didn't say, hey, listen, the Philistines are coming. No, I'm good, thanks. I'm doing my own thing. It was, listen, I'm not gonna wait on God to offer the offering. And I'm gonna do most of what God's actually, I did what I was told, but not quite. And now we're on a different trajectory. It's the small things. It's the attitude issues. It's the way we let ourselves slide that get us in trouble. Just like Saul, you and I have been given a clear set of commands, blueprints to follow. Our call as the followers of Jesus Christ, oddly enough, is to be followers. You can't follow somebody who's not in motion. Jesus is in motion. He's rescuing the lost. He's setting the captives free. Recovery of sight to the blind. Declaring liberty, freedom over the oppressed, and declaring the acceptable year of God's favor. Jesus is on the move, and he's asked us to come follow him. This is what Christian life looks like, not coming to a church on Sunday, because I am not trying to bring balance to my life by adding to my already busy life a little bit of Jesus, and so therefore I'm balanced. He's not looking for balance. He's looking for wildly imbalanced. You and I have been called to a radical way of life.
Yeah.
Jesus first. Less of me, more of him. Less of me, more of him. This is the life you and I have been called to, and it's going to call us, require us to let go of some things of the past, to deal with the little foxes. God, you get it all. Not most, all. You get it all. And it's going to cause, by the way, I'm following Jesus first. So therefore, the way I parent my kids is not going to be, I'm not going to add a little Jesus to the mix. Jesus is the mix.
Yeah.
The way I love my wife is not a little bit of Jesus thrown in the mix. No. I love my wife as a follower of Jesus Christ, and so therefore the way I do that looks different. The way I pastor this church is going to look different because it's not about a little Jesus mixed in. It's all about Jesus. This is our firm foundation. Who? Jesus. This is my cornerstone. Jesus. And whenever I take my eyes off of him and start to look at me, I end up like Saul. Maybe it just started off a little crack, but I end up miles from where God intended me to go. I got great news. I don't know where you are this morning and how many detours you think you've been on, and how many of them, by the way, were self-inflicted detours. Romans 8:28 is still true. God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And right now, when you surrender your life to Christ fully, remember, partial obedience is still disobedience. God, you get it all. Not most, all. When you give it all to him in this moment, no matter where you think you've been, he will not just restore you. That'd be nice. He transforms us. And everything we think we did that was wasted, he says, no, I'm going to work that into your story too. I'm going to do something so absolutely beautiful in your life. Something so absolutely gorgeous, and it started out ugly, but I'm going to work it into a beautiful story in your life. We've been given a clear set of commands. Number one, follow. Number two, Matthew 22, verse 36 through 40. Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest command. And the second, so this is the first and greatest command. The second is like it, not like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself, meaning I better love when it's uncomfortable to love. I better forgive even when it's the last thing on earth I want to do. I better forgive. Anything less than that is just a little bit off. Not following our own ambitions or egos, our own unwillingness to forgive, but love God and love people with all I've got. And when I do, I can be like King David and live on purpose for God. And even when King David blew it, God still worked it back. He was still called a man after God's own heart. John chapter 13, verse 35, your love for one another will prove to the world that you're my disciples. So what's your homework this week? Your homework this week is two things. I want you to make time this week. Make time. Don't find time, make time to sit down and just really, like David, search me, O God. Know my inmost parts. If there's any way that's unpleasing to you, bring it to my attention and then help me deal with it. Yeah. Here's the beautiful part. It doesn't say, let me know, and then I'll try to figure it out on my own. No. When God shows you, he will then help you deal with the things that he shows you.
Yep.
This is the goodness of our God. And number two, I want you to find 2 more people this week to share the good news with. Yeah. I don't mean a 5-point sermon. You know, I got to preach to them, and with an altar call at the end, you can say, I just want to remind you in case nobody's told you today, in case you've forgotten, Jesus loves you. And I don't mean a little bit. I don't mean like, nice. I mean, Jesus adores you. God so loves you, he paid the ultimate price to win you back to himself. Go tell somebody this week about the goodness of God. Amen? Amen. And that's the message. Thank you, buddy.
So we have someone
yeah, y'all be seated for a second. I
special
want to tell you
in the
something really
house.
cool. I know, like,